So there was a turnaround that came in my life, and that's what I want to share. 2 testimonies. And I'll never forget, the first one, I was sitting in a cell group that I'd gone to. And this man started to share a testimony of another woman. And he said that this woman, very well known, famous woman, I can't remember her name now, but she was a serious preacher that was doing a lot for the Father. And she, at that time, in her younger day, she was running like youth groups, and she was very, very busy with all these youth groups and having weekends that they would go away, and they were coming together, and all these camps and everything that they would do. And she was very busy for the Father. And at one of these youth camps that she was running, she climbed up a tree, and whilst climbing up a tree, while up in that tree, she fell to the floor and fell to her death. And as she fell from that tree, she's lying on the floor, and people immediately ran and started praying for her. But in the process of what happens to her, she actually dies. And as she dies, she comes and she stands before the Father. And as she stands before the Father comes and brings out this book. And she said this book was so high that it stood like waist high for her. And this was a book of all the works that she was supposed to have done for her life. And boy, she looked at this book and she thought, wow, this is impressive. This is a lot of work that I'm supposed to be doing for the Father. And she thought, wow, she's done so much, because understand, she's been serving the Father for years. And there's so much that she's done for him. And he said, let us see how much of your book you have actually fulfilled. And when he opened up the pages of the book, he didn't go past a couple of pages. She was devastated. She started weeping, and she said to the Father, that is impossible. That is impossible. Father, I have done so much for you. He says, oh yes, you have. You've done a lot for me, my child. But now let me show you what happened. And he opens up her book, and she gets to a place. And at this place, there's an altercation between her and the Father. She goes into a place of where there's a little bit of a rebellion. The Father wants her to go in a direction, but she doesn't want to go in that direction. And she actually rebels against the will of the Father and starts to go in her direction. And at that very moment, when she no longer was doing what the Father wanted her to do. Now, she didn't see it as a blatant rebellion. She just saw it as this isn't the Father's will, and reasoned out in her mind that this is what the Father has got for her life, and went along a path of what she reasoned in her mind. And then, I'll have you know, even had confirmation of that in her life, and followed that path. And everything, which was years and years of work that she did for the Father, that was from that place, was all out of the will of the Father. And nothing of what she did was accredited to her at all. I sat there, I listened to this, and this sent warning bells from here to thy kingdom come in my spirit. And I thought, wow, what is the Father trying to show me? And then within the next week, I had another testimony. I went to a conference within that week, by that weekend, I think it was, I was in a John Maxwell Leadership Training Conference, and there was a man teaching, and same thing. He speaks about how when he was a young man, and he used to be part of Maranatha Church, and he was part of the youth, he was the youth leader of this church. And they had this brainstorming session. And when they had this brainstorming session, they came up with this wonderful idea for evangelizing in their area. And they came and they brought it to the pastor. And they sat with the pastor and they said to the pastor, this is what the Father has shown us, how to be able to go about this. And the pastor turned around and said, look, I'm going to pray about it. And I'll let you know what the Father thinks. And they all looked at him confused and thought, what is his problem? What do you mean he's going to pray about it? This is brilliant. This comes from the Father. It can't be our doing. But he said he was going to pray about it. Anyway, he came back a week later or so and told them, sorry, it's not the Father's will and he's not going to go with it. And they were very distraught. And they were very upset. And they couldn't understand. So the pastor sat down and said, today I'm going to give you my testimony that you do not know. So he proceeds to give him his testimony. And now this is the youth pastor that is now, this is like 30 years before. And now he's giving the testimony of what changed his life. And he says, and this pastor starts to give his testimony and he starts to tell him how he was in hospital dying of cancer. And he was battling cancer in his life. He was in his 30s and he was battling cancer in his life. And he didn't understand, that he was going through all of this in his body, fighting cancer. And as a matter of fact, he was already, he was not doing well. Anyway, he had this dream while he was in hospital. And while he was in hospital, he dreamt that he died. And when he died, he came and he stood before Yahuwah. And as he comes and he stands before Yahuwah, all of a sudden, he realizes that there's reams of paper coming around him. And as he stands, he's aware of these reams of paper piling up. And he looks around and he says, what is this? And Yahuwah says, this is all the works that you've done in your life. And so he sees these reams and reams of paper, and it's reams and reams and reams. Like before the old invoices that used to be printed out, with those dot matrix kind of printers. It was like that, reams of paper all over. And he said, wow, he was impressed. There was just so much around him. And so Yahuwah turns around and says to him, now we're going to test it by fire. Because the word says that he tests your works by fire. We're going to test it. Remember, only the silver and the gold and the precious stones will remain. The hay, the rubble, and the straw will burn up. So he goes and he sets it alight. And as he sets it alight, everything comes into one heap of rubble. He's a pastor of his church, do you understand? And he turns around and he says to the Father, this is impossible. It cannot be. It cannot be. After everything I've done for you, how can it be possible that I've done all of this for you, and yet at the end of the day, I only have hay, rubble, and straw? It's in a heap of ash on the floor. He said, my son, everything that you've done has been out of your own will, and you have not done what I created you to do. And everything that you've done has been for you to be able to impress me. And this is what you felt that you needed to do, but this is not what I ordained for you. Where did you ever take the time to seek my face and find out what have I ordained for your life? You never did that. You just started to serve me. And you just started doing what you thought you needed to do in your life. And he started weeping. And it was the same thing as with that woman. She started weeping when she saw that, and she said, and that's when the Father said to her, I'm sending you back. That same woman that fell. And he said, I send you back. Go make right what you did wrong. And so she repented before the Father for what she had done when she didn't pursue the way that he wanted her to pursue. And then today, she's absolutely walking in the call that the Father had ordained for her. But she was in a totally different direction. Same as this man. There and then he woke up out of his dream and he was totally healed of cancer. Came out of that dream, was healed of cancer, walked out of that hospital without a bit of cancer on him. But from that day, he never ever did another thing without seeking Abba Father first. Because at the end of the day, let's read Philippians. I know that this is today is not a day of where I'm, teaching in terms of going through. I'm, just preaching today from the Word, as this is what I believed Father wanted me to do. And it says, here, for it is Yahuwah who is working, Philippians 2 verse 13, my favorite scripture. And it says, for it is Yahuwah is working in you, both to desire and to do for his good pleasure. Do all matters without grumbling and disputing. So, read it in your version.
I'm not there.
Okay. I just want to see what it says, because I know in another version. Let me just quickly go get my Amplified Bible. This one doesn't say it as well, but I think it was in my Amplified that it says, it really says it more powerfully. Philippians 2 verse 13 says, not in your own strength, for it is Yahuwah who is all the while effectively at work in you, energizing and creating in you the power and desire both to will and to work for his good pleasure and satisfaction and delight. Philippians 2.
Philippians 2:13.
Yes.
Yours is so long, mine's a short one.
Okay, but this is because it's the Amplified.
Oh, okay. For it is God who is at work in you, both to will and to work for his good pleasure.
Okay, so you were created both to will and to do his good pleasure. So he has pre-planned, preordained good works. So let's see. So yeah, we need to understand, like if you look at this, because this is the Amplified. So in the Amplified, he amplifies it a little bit more. And that's why he says, not in your own strength, for it is Yahuwah who is all the while effectively at work in you, energizing and creating in you the power and desire both to will and to work for his good pleasure and satisfaction and delight. So it is him that is working in you both to will and to do his good pleasure. So we are supposed to be finding out what is his purpose, what is his plan, what is his works that we should be working in. And this is when I got to this testimony of these two testimonies, that then I realized, wait a second, Natalia, up until now you might have done a lot of things. You might have gone and preached in churches, might have gone and preached in schools, might have gone and done a lot of things. But was that really what the Father wanted, or was that what you were doing? And you see, if we just start to busy ourselves with the work of the Father, but it's not what he's created us to do, then what are you doing? At the end of the day, it's going to come down to one thing, which is exactly what Sarah Jubilee spoke in that weekend. It's called spiritual performance. Now, you need to understand, you either eat from a tree of life, or you eat from a tree of good and evil. The tree of knowledge of good and evil. Even that which is good can still be evil, because if it comes from your flesh, it is the works of your flesh. But if it comes from the Spirit, it will bear fruit and give life. But if it comes from your flesh, it's going to bring death in the end. So, did Abraham have a good idea by being able to birth Ishmael? Yes, it was a good idea. But in the end, it was not what the Father wanted, was it? So what I'm saying is, there are many things that we are busy about. But are we about our Father's business? And this is what the Father has spoken to me. Just 2-3 weeks ago, when everybody was on about Angus and what Angus is up to. And now we need to be able, there's things going on in our country, and now Angus is going to be the savior of South Africa. We have a savior, and that is Yahuwah. And when we turn back to him, to Yahuwah, and we turn back to his ways, and when we turn back to his commands, and we turn back to what we're supposed to turn back to, then he will do what he needs to do. And like I said, when he spoke, we're going to cover 10 points. Father said to me, what about the 10 commands? Can we just return back to the 10 commands? But you see, it's difficult for us to return back to the 10 commands, because if we start speaking about the 10 commandments, there's certain things in those 10 commandments that we're not doing. That we're not doing. Like one, keeping the Sabbath holy. If you don't even know what day the Sabbath is, and if you're still confused about what day the Sabbath is, then how can you keep it holy? You cannot keep a Sabbath holy that's not a Sabbath. Do you understand? So, when all of this started going on, I just seeked the Father. And I said, Father, what is going on here? And people are backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards, and this one wants to attack the man, and that one wants to attack, and this one wants, and this one is now raising up because this one's raising up because now we're all going to do this good thing because this is a wonderful thing to do, and everybody climbs on the bandwagon. Well, did you seek the Father? Is this what the Father's telling you to do, or do you just think it's a good idea? Because many are the plans of man, but they will come to nothing if it's just the plans of man. So the Father said to me, birds of a feather will flock together. You see birds flocking together. I put seed out in my garden for the birds. I put bread out in my garden for the birds. I see all different kinds of birds come together to eat the seed. But I certainly don't see an eagle come and eat with them, do I? No. Because the birds of the feather are all going to flock together, but an eagle is set apart. And the Father said, Natalia, who do you want to be? A bird of a feather that's flocking together, flock with what everybody's up to and what everybody's doing? Or do you want to be an eagle set apart for me and let me be able to tell you what it is that you need to do and how you need to do it and when you need to do it? And I am the one who leads, and I am the one who speaks, and I am the one who guides, and you seek me for what it is that I'm doing in this land. Not your idea, not your thing, and not you come now stand before man or before me and you demand and you command. What am I doing? Has anybody actually taken the time to find out what am I doing? Block your ears from what everybody else is saying and what all the prophets which are prophesying around the nations of the world are busy saying, and come sit at my feet and hear what am I doing? What am I saying? What am I actually busy with? Because you see, that's a Martha. A Martha is busy with everything. A Martha wants to run around and be busy with everything that there is. Oh, this is the next conference, let me go. This is the next thing, let me go. I'm seeking for him everywhere I go. But a Mary sits down at his feet, and she wants to be able to hear what has he got to say. And she wants to be able to be the one. You know, that Mary, that was the same Mary that sat with Mary and Martha, is the same Mary that went and offered the perfume at his feet. She was the prostitute. She knew what it was like to have been saved. Because at the end of the day, she was a harlot. But this is the one that came and sat, and she's spoken of in all the Gospels, that came and anointed him for burial with her perfume. That was so costly. She anointed him for burial. She went and washed his feet with her hair. She had an understanding that she wanted to serve him. She wanted to love him. She didn't need anything of him. She wasn't trying to impress him. Hello? How can she impress him? What was she going to do to impress him? She came and poured out that on his feet, and she came and because she was so grateful that her, a sinner, a harlot, that's not worth much, is worthy of forgiven much. And that is why when it was Mary and Martha running around, he says, Mary has chosen the better part. Does it mean to say that Mary did nothing? Does it mean to say you have to stop your job? And this is the issue I'm going to get to next. Does it mean to say that you have to stop your job and now come away from everything and sit down and just hear him? And no, it's learning to walk with him in your everyday life. It's learning to stop doing and just be. And in your being, he will do. And this is what we've got to learn to get to. Stop doing to try and impress him with your spiritual performance of what you do. Because you never pray enough, you never repent enough, you never read enough, you never do enough. But can you just come and sit at his feet and love on him without even doing anything? Because we're going to get into that now. as we start looking at a husband and a wife relationship. So let's look at a husband and a wife relationship. Okay, so when you first go into a relationship with this young man, you got to dress yourself up. You put on all your nice makeup, and you got to impress him, and you dolly yourself up, and boy, you go, and you got to get his attention. And then he starts to batter his eyelids at you because you've made yourself also beautiful for him. And the same does he do with you. Do you understand? Wow, you know what? He makes sure that he phones you and he sends you little WhatsApps and tells you how precious you are and how special you are and all these things, and he loves on you too. And he makes sure that he, sits with you and, gives you all his attention and everything. Hello, then you get married. And then life happens. And then all of a sudden, life is a lot bit more about you trying to impress him now. Soon he's going to wake up to a woman that doesn't have all this makeup on her face, you understand? And he's going to see you for who you really are. So if he's only ever seen you so beautiful on the outer side of yourself, and he only fell in love with you for what is on the outer side of you, because you have put yourself as this little doll that is so beautiful, that is like so done up, what is going to happen when he wakes up next to you the next morning and he's never seen you without all that makeup on your face? And then what happens then? You understand? That's the real person that he's got to deal with. But yet we with the Father are so concerned with our outer appearance. And this life gets us so concerned in our outer appearance. We spend so much time in our outer appearance. Man, the hair must look right, the makeup must look right, the clothes must look right, everything on the outside. Oh, we got to diet, we got to do all this for our outer appearance. But have I got news for you? The Father's more concerned with what's going on the inside. Like this is what he's challenged me with, just not this weekend, the weekend before. He says, you see, Natalia, at the end of the day, you're so worried about what everybody's seeing on the outside, because now I'm worried about, now I'm going to this weekend away, and what are they going to think of me with my head covering? I'm so religious, I'm so this, and this is all that's the lies that Satan's speaking in my mind. Meantime, behind the scenes, that's not what the people are seeing at all. And they're coming to me saying different things to what my mind is telling me, because my mind is telling me a lie, but they are telling me the truth of what the Father's trying to say to me. Wow, there's a beauty. But it's not a physical outer beauty that they're seeing, but it's an inner beauty that they see of the Father. So have we taken time, the time that we stand having to adorn this body on the outer side, do we take the time to allow him to adorn us from the inside? To go and deal with all those little areas in your life that I've been telling you, where there's a need to be seen, a need to be heard, a need to be needed, a need to be known, where there's a need to be something or do something. What about if you just don't have to do anything? What about if it's okay if you just sit at his feet and do nothing, and maybe just be a housewife like Sarah Jubilee now has found herself? And this is why her story that's what I was waiting for. You see, when I was reading her books, there were times I was coming under guilt and condemnation, because I would say, Father, it's so easy for this girl to be able to spend these hours with you and, be in the spirit with you and do all of this with you. It's so easy for her to do that because she's a single girl. She lives in her mother's house. She doesn't work. She doesn't have a husband. She doesn't have anything. This is all she can do. And this is what he did with her for 7 years. But that was part of her equipping time, like she says. But now she's in the wilderness. And she says, now imagine this. All you've had for 7 years is the Father, and sitting at his feet and hearing his voice and he's loving himself on you. And he's just revealing himself to you. You have this awesome intimacy. And now all of a sudden you get hit with a marriage. Now you've got to share him with another person. And now 2 months into the marriage, whatever, you fall pregnant. And now you've got a third person going to come in. And now you've got to share yourself between a part of you and a husband. But the Father still needs his space. And now you've got to try and find yourself in the midst of all of this. Because now all of a sudden, this, like he said to her, this was spiritual performance. You've been performing for me, but now this is the real deal. And you see, she said something so beautiful that the Father revealed to her that I really just want to be able to share with you, because this spoke volumes in my spirit. You see, the desert, what the Father revealed to the desert is the face of the Father. So when you go into the wilderness, the desert in Israel is the face of the Father. No wonder I love the desert. Oh man, if I go to Israel, there's no place that I love as much as I love it. Look, I love Jerusalem, but I love the desert. I love being in the desert. I love looking at those mountains of the desert. There's something that the desert does to me that no other place can do for me. Not Galilee and those beautiful green mountains like we'll go now, and it's going to be, springtime and everything's green and it's lush and it's beautiful. But the desert, there's a special place for me in the desert. And you see, that's what it is. When you're in that desert experience between you and the Father, and you're going through that difficulty and you're going through that suffering, that is the place where you seek Him face to face. That's the place of where you see Him, you see His face. So the desert, what He explained to her, is my face. And you see, it's in the desert that you seek Him face to face. It's in the desert that you are going to see Him when deep cries out to deep, like this poem. My deep being is crying out to His deep being in saying, I need you. I need you more than the air that I breathe. It's not about these peripheral things around me anymore. My flesh is dying. Everything in me is dying. I am in a mourning process. I'm mourning who I am. I'm mourning everything I know myself to be, so that I can become everything He created me to be. So that I stop doing the works that I'm doing to impress Him and start to get onto the page of the good works that He has already pre-planned, preordained for me to be able to walk in. Those are the works that I'm supposed to be doing for Him. And those are the things that we don't understand. So we come before the Father, and now, do you seek Him in intimacy because of what He must do for you? Because you're trying to raise yourself up more in a ministry, and so that you can become more in the ministry. Oh, so that I can become this and become that, because there's this prophetic word, you're supposed to be an Esther, and there's that prophetic word because you're supposed to go and preach in the nations and this and that. Do you seek Him, come into His presence because of that? Or do you seek Him and come into His presence because just of who He is, and that He doesn't need to do anything for you? Because at the end of the day, can we just love Him for who He is, instead of doing all these things to try and impress Him so that we can get something out of it? And we need to go deep and see, are we still spiritually performing for Him? Because if we are spiritually performing for Him, then we need to stop. Because there are too many people that are so busy with the things of the Father that they've actually lost the Father of the things in the end. And He's just looking for a bride. So when you finally get married, you don't need to put on a performance for your husband anymore. Boy, he's going to know every ugly detail of you, whether you like it or whether you're not. There's going to be times that you can be extremely loving, and there's going to be times that you're going to be able to be extremely ugly. And he's going to get to know the ins and the outs of you. And you're going to realize you don't need to impress him anymore. And if you're in a marriage where you still need to impress your husband, then somehow you are in a bondage. Because that man has put you in a bondage. If he still expects you to do all these things, then you don't have a deep love relationship where he can just accept you for who you are, and that you can accept him for who he is. But if you still have to perform in a marriage to impress each other, what are you doing? And I know that there's marriages like that. I know that there's marriages that some husbands, this is what they expect of their wives, man. They've got to be dolled up to the T. If they come home, boy, this is it. This is the way they got to be. Dolled up to the T. But you know what? If you go look at deep down inside, that man has an insecurity problem because you make him look good. You make him feel good. I know that there's many men that's the case. A woman must look good because it's about his ego at the end of the day. It's got nothing to do with you. It's got to do with him and his ego. So all of us need to be able to get back to the place of becoming real. Because you know what? I can be real with my husband. I can come on that day, I can let my head down and I can give him my heart and say to him, this is how I feel, this is what's going on, this is what is happening, this is what I feel, this is what you've done or what you haven't done or whatever. I can be real. Can we just be real with our Father and that is our Creator, that is in heaven, that we can just be real with Him so that we can really pour out our hearts to Him and be real without having to sit and now, hang on a second, my quiet time is going to have to be, I've got to do so many prayers, I've got to do so many this and so many that, and then hang on a second, then this prayer thing comes in and I've got to do this as well, and now we're busy ourselves and you know what? And the devil just gets us very busy. And at the end of the day, are we getting any closer to Him? Or are we actually just getting further away from Him? Because that's what intimacy is about. Intimacy, do you know that when two people love each other, they can actually just be in each other's presence and not even have to speak? Because that love just flows through. It's like I've heard that when someone is in a room, like, for example, husband and a wife are in a room, and a wife can give her husband a look, and he knows, okay, it's time to go. She doesn't even need to say anything. She just needs to look at him and say, you know. They know each other. They know each other that way. Does the Father know us that way? Do we know what is on the Father's heart for what He's trying to do right now? Are we trying to be about the Father's business in what He's doing on the earth right now? Or are we too busy with everything else that's going on around us right now? Because, you know, more and more, He's wanting tabernacles that He may dwell in. He wants to dwell. Imagine this. We were created to be a tabernacle that He may dwell in, so that He may do through you. So guess what? The more you learn to just be, when you don't try, it's like, well, Elsie will say to me, you know what? Wow, I'm so not spiritual. I'm so the most unspiritual person. I say, what? What are you talking about? Because she learned how to be for the Father. And while she learned how to just be, He does. I say to her, do you see how the Father uses you? Look at how He just leads you here and leads you there. But why? Because you are a vessel that's totally submitted to Him, totally surrendered to Him, to such a degree that you are totally submitted, so totally surrendered that He's able to just use you. And that's the beauty of it. And guess what? Half the time we don't even know that He's using us. And isn't that when He gets all the glory? Isn't that when He gets all the glory? Otherwise it becomes about you and what you're doing. But imagine when He's just using you and you are actually going about your day, fulfilling His purposes, fulfilling His plans, fulfilling the things that He has got in your book for you to fulfill. Because you are such a vessel that is so surrendered and submitted to Him that He's able to use you as you just go about your day. That He just puts in your spirit, send that one a message. And now you just go and you think, oh, okay, I'll just do that. And then just pray for this one. And then you just do that. But you're just going about your day. You're not having to sit and now go and say, okay, now I have to go and spend 3 hours with Him, or I have to go and spend 5 hours because this is what I have to do. Can we just learn to walk with Him? Because this is what Sarah said now. You see, now she's having to learn to be in a different place because, you see, before she could just sit and do nothing. But now she's a wife. She has to cook. She has to clean. She has a baby that she's got to take care of. So now she's having to learn while she's sitting with her baby. She's still listening to ABBA. What are you saying to me right now? What is it that you want me to do? So are you about your business? Because then there are those people that are in a job and then they feel guilty because now they're in this job and now where's the Father in this? Because now they're going to all come away, sit like Mary at His feet. No, not everybody's called to do that. And this is the problem. When we all get onto this page, when we get onto this place, you see, for it is Yahuwah who is all the while effectively at work in you, both to will and to work for His good pleasure and satisfaction and delight. When you finally get to the place of when you allow Him to be able to work in you, His good pleasure, then you start to fulfill the purposes and the plans that He has ordained for your life. And then guess what? We all start to fulfill His kingdom purpose. Because there is only one kingdom, but we all have different gifts. There's only one body, but we all fulfill different limbs. So now we will not look at this one and be jealous. We will not look at that one and want to compete. We will not look at this and want to be able. We will all come together and we will all just be able to do what the Father created us to do. And together we build the kingdom. But at the moment, not enough people are coming into His purpose and His plan, because we're all still running around doing. And we haven't learned to just be, so that in the being He does. And have we actually taken the time to say, okay, Father, I know you've got a plan that you have already pre-planned, predestined before the foundations of the earth. What is that? What is that I'm supposed to be doing for you? What are those works that you have got that I'm supposed to do for you? I don't want to do anything other than that, because everything else is going to be the hay, the rubble, and the straw. And so we need to start becoming focused. Focus. Because there's far too much distractions going around at the moment. If the Father didn't get you to do that, what are you worried about it? Let the birds of the feather flock together. If that's what they're supposed to do, and if this is what the birds of the feather are supposed to flock together to do, let them flock. But if you are an eagle, allow yourself to be seated with Him and listen to what He's got for you to do. Because that which He's got for you to do is going to make all the difference for the other piece of the puzzle that needs to come in, and the other piece of the puzzle that needs to come in. Remember, we are all pieces of the puzzle that the Father needs to be able to put together in His big plan. But if we don't start to do what we were created and called to do, how are those pieces of the puzzle going to all fit together? They can't. And so this is why, after having gone away, and this is that weekend, and when Sarah really spoke, and as I really started to think about what the Father is busy doing at this point in time, and she spoke about Martha and Mary, and the difference between a Martha and a Mary. And you see, a Martha gets herself extremely busy with the works of the Father. And I read something this morning about Martha and Mary symbolizing the two houses, the house of Israel and the house of Judah. And if we really look at the house of Judah, they are the ones that perform. They are the ones that go to the wall and have to say all these prayers and all these rituals and all these things. They're performing, are they not? Very busy. Not to say that the things that they're doing is wrong. The Father never said that anything of what Martha was doing was wrong. He just said that Mary chose the better part. He didn't say that what she did was wrong. We can go and look at the account. We can go read it. Let's go and read. Actually, I haven't even written. Oh, yeah. Luke 10. I don't even know if that's where it is. Otherwise, we will look at other scriptures that the Father has shown me. I actually wanted to look at Luke 10, 38 to 42. Luke 10. Yeah. Okay, let's see. Luke 10, 38 to 42. And it says, "And it came to be as when they went, he entered into a certain village, and a certain woman named Martha received him into her house. And she had a sister called Miriam, who also sat at the feet of Yeshua and heard his word. But Martha was distracted." You see, that's the word. It wasn't necessarily that Martha, what she was doing was wrong. Martha allowed herself to get distracted. The enemy will come and distract us. Martha was distracted with much serving, and coming up, she said, "Master, are you not concerned that my sister has left me to serve alone? Speak to her then to help me." And Yeshua answering said to her, "Martha, Martha, you are worried and troubled about many matters. But one only is necessary, and Miriam has chosen the good portion, which shall not be taken away from her." So Martha was distracted. You see, we become distracted by all these things that come around us. This little prayer request and this little thing. And we need to understand, we need to focus on the things that the Father has given for us to do. Mary chose the better part. Mary chose to listen to him and not be distracted by the works that was going to be done for him. Not to say that it wasn't important to serve him a meal. Not to say that all of that wasn't important. But at that moment, listening to what he had to say was more important than having to go and serve him. And how many of us have actually come and sat down and listened to him, to what he wants, as opposed to going to do all these things that we think is going to please him because this is what he wants. So do you see what I say? We get so busy with the outer peripheral things as opposed to coming to sit with him and allow him to deal with the deeper things. It's the same as we spend so much time beautifying our outer body to look good so that people can see the beauty that's on the outside. When the Father is saying, if you come and sit and spend time with me, I will show you deep things that is within you that will beautify you from the inside, that you won't even need to worry about what's on the outside, because people will no longer see the exterior, they will only see the interior of who is there, and that is me. Do you understand? And so, if we busy ourselves, we don't take that time to allow him to really come and show us what it is that's there that needs to change. What are the areas in our lives that he still needs to mold and shape and do what he needs to do? You know, that is why the Israelites didn't want to enter into the presence of the Father at the top of Mount Sinai. Because you see, when the Father really starts to deal with you, there's no time that you really come. There's many times he loves on you, but there's many times when you come into the presence of the Father, you cannot come into the presence of the Father and leave the same. Because if you come into the presence of the Father, I can assure you, he's going to show you some or other area in your life that he wants to be able to be more like him. Because are we not created to be more like him? Or are we not created to be called into his image? So that is ultimately what the Father's trying to do. To get us to come into that place of where we stop what we're doing, take introspection and say, am I serving you because I genuinely love you? Because let's go to Mark chapter 12. Mark chapter 12 verses 28 to 30. And it says, and one of the scribes, coming near, hearing them reasoning together, knowing that he had answered them well, asked him, which is the first command of all? And Yeshua answered him, the first of all commands is, hear, O Yisrael, Yahuwah our Lord, Yahuwah is one. Hear, O Israel, hear, O Israel, Yahuwah our Lord, Yahuwah is one. And you shall love Yahuwah your Lord with all your heart, with all your being, with all your mind, and with all your strength. This is the first command. So, the first command is hear, O Israel. Hear, O Israel. Hear, O Natalia. Now, that hear, O Israel, is Shema. That word in the Hebrew is Shema. And that word Shema is hear and obey. So if I'm not Shemaing with him, if I'm not hearing and obeying, then what am I doing? I need to hear and then I need to obey. So my relationship with him has to be about Shema. Hear and obey. It's like the Father said to me. It's like the Father once said to me. And so it's like when the Father spoke to me about the one morning I woke up And as I woke up, I just had him say to me, Natalia, what does it mean to worship me in spirit and in truth? And I just thought, okay. And now normally when he asks me a question, I don't even try and answer because I don't really know. I say, Father, I don't know. And he says, you need to worship me in spirit and in truth. Now, John chapter 4, we can go there quickly. John chapter 4, Yahuwah sitting with the woman at the well. John chapter 4, and it talks about, here we go. So, John chapter 4 from verse 22. It says, from John chapter 4 verse 22, you worship what you do not know. We worship what we know, because the deliverance is of the Yodim. But the hour is coming, and now is, when true worshippers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth. For Yahuwah also does seek such to worship him. Yahuwah is spirit, and those who worship him need to worship him in spirit and truth. So, when the Father said to me, what is a true worshipper? What does it mean to worship me in spirit and in truth? Natalia, I'm looking for a true worshipper. Because you see, me, I'm a worshipper. I'm a worshipper that worships him through dance. So obviously I can spend a lot of hours in dance, and that again can make me feel very good. Because now wow, you know what, I worship for 2 hours, 3 hours, and I think, wow, you know, I've done this awesome work for him. And that's when he said to me, what is a true worshipper? What does it truly worship me? What does it truly mean to worship me in spirit and in truth? And you see, if we don't get this, we can do a lot of works, but we're not going to be able to get these works right. And let me explain to you. A true worshipper that will worship him in spirit and in truth, from the way he explained to me, said to me, you see, we have been brought in church to understand one who worships him in spirit is one who's going to worship him in tongues, isn't it? So we worship him in spirit, so we're worshiping him and we pray and we say, and we're worshiping in the spirit and we're singing in the spirit. And what about truth? Okay, so what does it mean to worship him in spirit and in truth? So we're worshiping him in tongues and then in truth. And this is what the church had taught me. That's what it means to worship him in spirit and in truth. We need to be able to worship him in spirit, meaning you need to worship him in tongues. So when you're busy singing or whatever, you're singing tongues and then you're worshiping him in spirit. No. And the Father said to me, no. What I mean, when I'm looking for a true worshipper, then that means that if he says a true worshipper, that means there must be a false worshipper, isn't there? So there's one who's worshiping him. And that was the Israelites in the desert, where they said, you worship me with your lips, but your hearts are far from me. So a true worshipper is going to worship him from the heart. A true worshipper is one who will shama, listen and obey. So a true worshipper is one who will worship him in spirit, meaning what he shamas, what he speaks, what he tells you to do. They listen and they obey. So one who worships him in spirit, it's the spirit that is going to speak what Yahuwah has for you to do. It's by his spirit that you need to obey his spirit. So today, he speaks. There's the written word of the Father that you need to obey. That's the truth. And then there's the spoken word. That's what it means to worship him in spirit and in truth. Truth is this written word. Spirit is the spoken word. Because he gave us his spirit, who is still speaking today. So if his spirit speaks to you and says, you need to go here, you need to do this, you need to say this, you need to do this, you shama, you listen and you obey. But if this Bible tells you, keep the Sabbath, keep the feasts, love your neighbor, all the things that it tells you to do, that is the truth that is in this word, that you cannot twist it around And say, oh, but maybe, we'll just change the Sabbath from a Saturday to a Sunday, or Sabbath is any day of the week. We just need to rest on. We'll choose our day of the week that we are to rest. That's what it means. True worshippers that will worship Him in spirit and in truth. And this ties back to a scripture that I want to read in Deuteronomy chapter 13. And if you want a prayer, this is a prayer. This is the point of a powerful prayer. I mean, Deuteronomy chapter 13 is just the most powerful scripture, because this is really, there's so much in here. Especially when it comes to false prophets. If you really want to know how to judge a prophet, go to Deuteronomy chapter 13 and you will understand. And this is what he says in Deuteronomy 13 verse 4. Walk after Yahuwah. So this is what I would like to, close off here. Deuteronomy 13 verse 4 says, walk after Yahuwah, your Elohah. Fear Him. Guard His commands. Obey His voice. And serve Him and cling to Him. Those are the 6 things there. Walk after Yahuwah. Fear Him. Guard His commands. Obey His voice. Serve Him. Cling to Him. That is what He's telling you to do. So may this be a prayer for you, that you can come before Him and say, Father, teach me to walk after You, that I may learn to fear You, that You will teach me to guard Your commands, that I will hear Your voice and shema, that I will listen and obey, that I will learn to serve You in what it is that You have for me to do, and that I will always cling to You no matter what comes my way. Because if we look at Martha and Mary, Martha was doing a lot of things, but was she sitting down to hear what He wanted to tell her? And then when He was finished telling her what she needed to hear, she could then go and get everything done, isn't it? First, shema with Him. Listen, obey. Then in your being, He will do. Without you even realizing, He will do. Because that is what, right now, the Father is bringing the 2 houses together. The house of Ephraim, the house of Judah. The house of Israel, the house of Judah. They're coming together as one body. And I see it as the prodigal son. The prodigal son is representative of the house of Israel. We are like the Mary that has gone and prostituted ourselves. We've gone and had other gods. We took our inheritance. We squandered it all. We didn't stay in our Father's house and obey our Father's rules and obey our Father's laws. No, we went and did it our way and went into the world and squandered our inheritance, which is exactly what the prodigal son did. But the Father is waiting for that prodigal son to come back. And that prodigal son had to land up in the pigsty. And he had to land up in the pigsty. Why? Because he squandered everything. He went and did his own thing. He went his own way. And when he finally learned to come back to the Father, and this is what this message is about. Come back to Him. Forget about everything else. Just sit at His feet. Just hear Him. Doesn't matter about all these things that you want to. You know what? Just sit at His feet. Even if you go there for days and He doesn't speak, there will come a day when He will finally speak. Just love Him. Just worship Him. Imagine if every single time I came to my husband, it was because I needed to ask him for something. Imagine every single time I go sit with my husband, I have to ask him, baby, I need you to do this for me, and this for me, and this for me, and do this, and do this, and do this, and do this, and this is all I do. I come to him because this is all he's got to do for me. But yet I don't come sit with him and just listen to what he has to say. How was his day? What's on his heart? What's going on in his life? And just listen to what he's got to say. and then have intimacy there, between each other, and just him sharing with me and me sharing with him, and we don't need to do anything. I don't need to do anything to impress him. As a matter of fact, the more he'll open up to me in certain things, the more I realize I've got to change, because I still haven't arrived where I need to be. And that's how it is with the Father. The more you come and sit with him, the more he starts to reveal to you, but hang on a second, there's areas in your life that you need to change. And that will grow in intimacy. The more you hear him, the more you listen, the more you obey, the more he changes you, and the more you become like him. And then it's not an outer thing that you do. It's an inner thing that he does. He starts to change you from within. It's not these outer things that you do. And so, if we guard and obey all these words which he commands you, that it might be well. So you see, in Deuteronomy chapter 12, it says over here in verse 28, Deuteronomy chapter 12, verse 28, guard and obey all these words which I command you, that it may be well with you and your children after you forever, when you do what is good and right in the eyes of Yahuwah your Lord. So when you do what is right in the eyes of Yahuwah your Lord, when you just come and sit, and the prodigal son, imagine this, the prodigal son is what I understand as being Israel. And this is the one that has gone out, squandered its inheritance. Man, it's got all these religious systems, it knows all these things, it says to its father, I don't need to stay in your house, I'm going to go do my own thing. I'm going to go and, live life my way. I received Yahuwah. That I believe is like what I see as my inheritance is I received Yahuwah, but I went and lived life my way. I haven't sat in your house. I haven't obeyed your rules. I haven't obeyed by your ways and all that which you represent. No, I went and did it my way. Until eventually I'm going to land up in a pigsty and realize, but what am I doing with my life? And I'm going to come into a serious wilderness, and then I'm going to come back. But isn't it amazing? He's waiting to give us a scepter. He kills the golden calf. He puts a robe on us. He gives us the shoes. And then we provoke our older brother to jealousy, because the older brother has been living in the house all along, but he's a slave. You see, he's living with the father, but he was a slave. Why was he living like a slave? The father could kill a fatted calf at any time for him. But he was living in his own father's house as a slave, and that's Judah. Judah's living in the father's house. He knows the father's laws. He knows the father's ways, but he's enslaved himself in all these extra peripheral do's and don'ts that's added to it, and he performs constantly for the father. So who's going to teach him to be able to just walk by the Ruach? To do this which is written here. Walk after Yahuwah, your Lord. Fear him. Guard his commands. Obey his voice. Serve him. Cling to him. That is what you will do out of no performance, but you do it out of love. Not that you have to, not that you're obliged to, but that you love him enough to want to do it. And this is the place we've got to get to. So that like Martha, she was the one that was very preoccupied and busy with many things, distracted. And this is an hour where the enemy has many people distracted. Don't get distracted. Get focused. Focus on what he's telling you to do. If he didn't tell you to do that, don't do it just because you think it's a good idea. Do you understand? Because he's got works that he wants you to do. That he wants you to do his good pleasure. Do those things that he's got for you to do. So let us pray. Abba Father, I thank you, my King. I thank you for this message, Father. I pray that you will teach us to truly learn to Shema, to listen and obey. Father, forgive us for all our spiritual performance that we have done, where we perform for you thinking that that's what makes us stand righteous before you, our performing. Father, you do not want our performance, you want our obedience. Just because we do all the right things that we think is right in our own eyes doesn't make us stand right with you. And so, Father, I pray that you will truly bring us to a place as things start to shake around us, to truly start to wake us up, so that we can come into that wilderness as when my whole life started turning upside down and everything around me was shaken, that I was able to cry out to you. And so I would just want to ask you, Father, to please forgive us. Please forgive us, Abba Father. Forgive us for what we do not really know, how to be able to just be with you, as we were never really taught. As Father, religion has always told us to do. We need to be doing all these things for you. And religion hasn't really taught us how to be. And Father, I pray that you will teach us how to just be, so that then you can truly do. So I just want to thank you, Father, that you will take us by the hand. And I want to pray, Father, that you will teach us, my Abba, to walk with you. That you will teach us to fear you. That you will teach us to guard your commands. That you will teach us to obey your voice. Let us hear your voice, Abba, because so many need to just learn to hear your voice. Teach us to truly know what it means to serve you. And that we will really learn to cling to you no matter what. As that would really be my prayer in this hour. I praise and I thank you for this in Yeshua's name. Amen. I want to finish off with a prayer. A poem, once again. It's a poem. It's not a prayer, it's a poem. And this is the very first poem that I wrote, and this one was on the 13th of March in 2008, and this was just after I had done a fast, and this comes from the Father's heart. And may I finish off with this, as this is coming from the Father. And it's called Come Away, My Beloved. Come away, my beloved, far above imagining. We will fly high into the sky. You have ravished my heart, my sons, my daughters, my bride. Oh, I have longed for you, longed for your embrace. Come away, my beloved, away from the race. Come and seek my face. All day long I wait for your embrace. In my arms there is perfect love. There is comfort, healing, peace, and grace. In my presence is where you belong. My sons, my daughters, my bride. Oh, how I long for you, my sons, my daughters, my bride. To kiss you with the kisses of my lips, so you may never thirst. Come away, my beloved, into the most holy place, beyond the veil where I will show you my face, and you will know my embrace. I wait, my beloved, I wait. Amen.